But you recently predicted that the crypto market will double in size to $5 trillion by the end of 2024. That is a big prediction just by the end of this year.
Yeah, I don't even feel like it's that big a prediction when you step back. And, you know, like any market, this is driven by supply and demand. You have decreasing supply for a whole bunch of reasons, the halving of Bitcoin being an important one. You have an increasing demand, the ETF being a key part of that. And I think it's also people realizing that crypto plays a role as an asset. You know, it's a $2.5 trillion market. Maybe it's a little less than that now. But so it's basically just predicting it's going to double by the end of the year. And if anything, I think I probably underpredicted that.
To the question regarding the family, I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know. And I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Seismic precedent being set here, Peter?
Well, we have seen governments around the world struggle with this very question. How much access should minors have to social media and to other kinds of technologies? They've struggled with how to implement some of these concerns, how to address some of them. Parents certainly upset. So what we're seeing in Australia is one of the most dramatic moves yet, where they are going to ban social media for under 16s. As you say, this is not something where you can get your parents' permission and then get back on. This is a blanket ban. It is very controversial, as you say. The technology companies are pushing back hard against this. Meta has objected, Facebook, of course, and also Elon Musk has talked about how this is a fascist step by the company. But Prime Minister Albanese has led this personally. He's got a lot of public support.
Yeah.
He also has a lot of support within the government. So he's moved ahead with this, and they're pretty determined to make this stick.
I mean, it's wildly popular. I think it was about 77% of adults support the move, according to a YouGov survey. But
That's
you
right.
might, if a cynic out there, be like, of course Meta's going to push back. Of course TikTok's going to push back. But they have grounds to push back because many feel that actually this is, in many ways, a very blunt instrument being imposed and very hard to navigate.
Yeah, there are difficulties in terms of implementing something like this. The companies have about 12 months before they have to actually implement it. The government is also putting the burden of implementation onto the companies themselves. There's some debate about whether the social media companies should take the lead on this or whether the app stores overseen by Apple and Google should do this instead. But this is going to be squarely on the companies to actually implement this and to figure out the best way to do this. It is not impossible to do this. Companies love to say, oh, it's rushed. It's a very difficult decision to implement. But governments have been able to do this in the past. The question is exactly how you're going to implement the technology. China's actually been quite successful at implementing these kinds of guardrails around how teenagers use technology. But, of course, that's a country where the concerns about privacy are much less than you may see in Australia or the United States or the UK even. So there will be questions about how they're going to implement this. It would be difficult for them to actually implement this, but the government is determined to move ahead with it.
So, Peter, that's kind of where I'm coming from as a parent. Although my kids are grown and out of the house, they can do what they want as far as I'm concerned. But technologically, how do they actually do it? Is it a piece of software that, I don't know, Facebook would put on its software that figures out what your age is and therefore access?
There are many different choices. I guess I'd begin with one example out of Norway, though. They tried to implement something like this with kids where they tried to set a limit on how young kids could get on, but more than 70% of them figured out ways to get around it, around their parents and around the technology companies. So kids often are smarter than we are in terms of implementing these sort of things. But when you've seen it done successfully, like in places like China in particular, you have to register. You have to have an account that's identified with a particular individual. They set gating factors. In China, they don't let kids get online after 10 o'clock at night or before 6 a.m. in the morning. So you don't have kids going out and using this kind of technology. It is something from a parent standpoint that you would probably see as quite useful if you're able to implement it. China also, because they have much more centralized control over these things, limited how much time kids could spend on things like games and on social media.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher, and I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have Brad Garlinghouse interviewed on 60 Minutes. They haven't released the air date, but we know dates are chosen. But if Ripple is on 60 Minutes talking about regulation, that means it's right around the corner. We had Trump putting crypto on the main stage, and Brad Garlinghouse is going to do the same thing when this 60 Minutes interview is released. And those who watch 60 Minutes are well above 50 years old. And with this interview, that's going to bring in the younger generation. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. Now we have XRP pumping, and I'll go over that in the first video tomorrow. Now we have Joe Biden pardons his son. And that should not be surprising since he's on his way out the door. He doesn't have to worry about getting any backlash. But he definitely told us he wouldn't pardon his son. Now we have Australia banned 16-year-olds from social media. First of its kind. And we know the NWO is setting up for this fourth industrial revolution, and they choose which countries they want to test different sectors. This is nothing but a test to see how these kids are going to react. And for a lot of these kids, social media is the only thing that they have. And you know I bought you plenty of videos when I first started. A couple of them got me a strike because they clearly knew what social media would do to these kids. We can clearly see what it does to an adult. And we've all been teenagers. You already have enough pressure as it is. But in most people's minds, they think this can't be done. But us in crypto, we know the technology. They have the technology to make this easy. And that's facial recognition. And all the information that these kids already gave social media. And then on top of it, the parents are on social media. So you can clearly see the kids and how old the kids are. But as you heard Peter from Bloomberg, he kept bringing up China. Remember, guys, we're following China's ways into the fourth industrial revolution. And part of that is the metaverse. And you can imagine the crazy things that are going to happen in this metaverse. You're going to definitely have to restrict kids. And that's why they're doing the testing now. Remember, the NWO is always 5, 10, 15 years ahead. But this is all about the digital economy and the fall of America to Babylon and the rise of China with the BRICS nations with that digital yuan backed by that digital SDR. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
You can't really use the same kinds of procedures in a place like Australia or the United States.
Yeah, I mean, so in Australia, I know Caroline was citing those statistics about the support for this, but I can't imagine that working here. It just seems like a lot of folks would say, wait a minute, the government can't tell my kids what to do. It's up to me as a parent to decide, all that type of thing. But I guess Australia's gotten past that.
I think the broader question here is whether this is going to go beyond Australia into places like the United States or into Europe. Certainly in Europe, France has taken the lead on this. They feel like it's very important to have some kind of guardrails around how kids use technology, especially social media. We've seen lots of harm done to children through these things. Also in the States, you have a couple of individual states that are quite determined to do this. Florida probably has been the most aggressive in terms of looking at some parameters around this, but there are other states that are very concerned about how kids are using technology. They see that it is very harmful. I mean, people have talked about this as a psychological experiment being done on our kids without our permission.
Right.
And they want some kind of parameters around it.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because sometimes there are kids who feel very alone, unsupported, need access with social media to people that they associate with themselves. And actually, UNICEF, the United Nations Agency for Children, have come out saying, look, Australia's ban would push young people into darker, unregulated places online. They're worried about their rights, severing access to information. And they said instead of banning children, we should hold social media companies accountable for providing age-appropriate, secure and supportive online environments. And to be fair, look, Instagram had just imposed safety for 16-year-olds and younger, private accounts, messaging restrictions, sleep mode, for example, enabled between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And so is it really with Pandora's box already open, is the onus on the companies to now more seriously give me, the parent, a way of helping my child use it rather than just taking it off the table and lacking access to some kids?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Caroline. Is there a way to improve some of these social media sites and make them valuable instead of just banning them outright? And I think Australia got to the point where they feel like they've waited long enough. You know, if you expect Facebook to do better or X to do better, many of these other platforms, they're just not going to do it. I mean, you just have not seen it over the past few years. There's been many attempts that really haven't made very much progress. And so the question becomes this ultimatum of, do you let kids on in the hope that things are going to improve, or you just cut them off for now and perhaps put additional pressure on companies to do a better job of regulating the content that you're talking about? Really, the algorithms here are part of the problem, because they're not leading kids to the kinds of solutions that you're talking about. They're leading them to addictive kinds of content, and we've seen that again and again and again from the technology companies.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go, but clearly we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and When the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 Kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.